Hey, today on Drowsy Does, we're talking about the Arcane Mage and Warlords of Draenor, 6.0.3. Arcane's been one of those specs that I always try to avoid until you really reach that really high tier of gear, and you can really stack mastery, and then it always seems to shine at the end of an expansion. Well, here in Draenor, it seems like it's going to be the go-to for the majority of raiding. So I've been putting a lot of focus on actually learning it and getting better with it. So we're going to go over the talents, we're going to go over the glyphs, we're going to go over macros, and a basic rotation here. For level 15, just like Frost, Ice Flows, Arcane really suffers from having to stand still. A lot of the time, Arcane Flows negates that by giving you 3 on-demand mobile spells. Which is detrimental in your DPS. If you have to move anywhere, there's no instant casts for an Arcane Mage, so you need this to keep that rotation going while you're moving. Kind of a trick with Arcane is really learning placement, how to get from A to B the quickest point possible so you can get back to DPSing. So with the level 30 talent, I went with Alter Time. Alter Time used to be that big DPS cooldown. Now it's a movement and a health cooldown. So if you know some big movements coming up or some big damages coming up, you pop your Alter Time, do what you got to do, and then pop it again, and you're right back to where you were. This is really good for fights like Tectis when you're stacking with the ranged, and you know that it's your turn to get out of the group. Drop your Alter Time, drop a couple Ice Flows, get on the move, Alter Time back to where you were, and continue to beat the boss's face in. Level 45. My money's on Frostjaw. It doesn't matter. I picked this for the silence. It does not matter. Level 60, I go with Greater Invisibility because you do get that big 90% damage reduction. If you're questing or doing your dailies or whatnot, you can take Cold Snap. It does reset your Presence of Mind and your Ice Block. And it's probably your only heal as a mage. Now for this build, this is my single target build. For 75, I like to switch between Nether Tempest and Supernova. Nether Tempest is your single target dot, while Supernova is your trash bomb. It works a lot like Ice Nova, where it crushes 1 to 3 targets with 2 charges, whereas your Nether Tempest, you can only keep it up on 1 target, where you used to be able to spread it to everything. You drop this on 1 target, and it'll spread to anything else within 10 yards. Cool thing about Nether Tempest now is it is affected by your arcane charges. So it's not one of those dots that you need to keep up on your target at all times. It's one of those dots where when you have 4 arcane charges, you refresh your Nether Tempest. If you know it's about to fall off and you don't have 4 charges, don't refresh it until you do. Level 90, Mirror Images is not affected by your arcane power, so it's out of the running here. So it's a toss-up between Rune of Power and Incanter's Flow. Incanter's Flow is really good for learning a fight. Your first couple times in a raid, where you're just learning where the safe spots are for a mage to stand, use Incanter's Flow. It's going to give you that passive 4 to 20% damage increase. But once you've learned the fights, once you know where the hot spots are, Rune of Power, it's going to give you that 8-yard radius where you can stand in, but you're going to get a consistent 15% damage increase, which in the long run of things really pays out. For level 100, depending on if I'm on a boss or if I'm doing trash, I'll switch between Prismatic Crystal and Arcane Orb. What Arcane Orb does is it launches an Arcane Orb, and it refreshes your arcane charges for each target that it hits. So if you're fighting 4 guys, build up your 4 arcane charges, Arcane Explosion a couple times, drop your Barrage, which will hit multiple targets, but it dumps your arcane charges. So you Barrage, Arcane Orb into there, and you have 4 charges right back to blowing them up. Single target is not quite as effective because the orb itself doesn't do a lot of damage, and you only get 1 charge out of it. So Prismatic Crystal pulls ahead here. So let's take a look at glyphs. There's only 1 mandatory glyph for for Arcane, and that's going to be Arcane Power, and it increases your duration and cooldown of your Arcane Power. This lets you stay in your Arcane Power longer, and what Arcane Power does is it makes your spells cost less and do more damage, which Arcane's mastery is the more mana you have, the more damage that you do. So you always want to stay above 90% mana. And Arcane Power lines up really nice with your Prismatic Crystal. They're both on a 1.5 minute cooldown. So when you're playing Arcane, it's really, there's two phases to it. You got your burst phase, and then you have your maintain phase. In your burst phase, you're trying to dump your mana down to 50%. Because every time you cast Arcane Blast, it gets stronger and stronger with each charge, but it costs more and more mana. And we'll get into that in the rotation phase. As far as the other glyphs, I like to go with Rapid Displacement. 2 blinks gets me to where I'm going so I can stand still longer. Arcane Explosion increases the radius of my explosion. And Momentum's kind of a must for minor glyphs. You blink in the direction you're traveling instead of the direction you're facing. Everything else is for the birds here. Alright, we'll take a look at macros. Because I'm a troll, I do like to use this macro here. I do a show tooltip on Arcane Power, and I macro my Berserking into my Arcane Power. You'll see in here I have mirror images in here just in case I decide to throw images in there. It lines up nicely. I'll do this maybe if I'm solo farming and I need that aggro dump, because Arcane's not really that great at kiting. This is mostly just to line up your Berserking and your Arcane Power into one button. Alright, so let's talk about the rotation here. Like I said before, there's 2 phases. You have your burn mana phase, and you have your conserve mana phase. To burst as an Arcane Mage, obviously you want to keep up your buffs. You'll pre-pot at the beginning of the fight. Now you don't want to pop your macro at the beginning of the fight because that uses your Arcane Power. Your Arcane Power is going to do 20% more damage and cost 10% less mana. So what I like to do is I'll wait until I have 4 Arcane charges, and then I'll pop this. So we'll start the fight, we pop Lust, and then we just start spamming Arcane Blast. 1, 2, 3. Now that we have 4 charges, we'll use our macro. We'll apply that Nether Tempest, and we'll put the Prismatic Crystal down. Now your only job in life is to spam your Arcane Blast like an idiot until your mana reaches 50%. Once your mana is at 50%, you reapply Nether Tempest, dump any missiles that you have, barrage, and then you'll evocate back to full. Now we're entering into our maintenance phase. Maintenance phase consists of 4 Arcane Blasts, 2, 3, 4, dump any charges you have, apply Nether Tempest, barrage clears all your stacks, and start over. This is it. Now you're going to do this until your Prismatic Crystal and your evocation come off of cooldown. So we'll dump our missiles, apply that Nether Tempest while we have 4 charges, barrage everything off, and back to it. That's all there is to it. Once your Prismatic Crystal comes up, like I said, you'll set your Prismatic Crystal, you'll get your mana back down to 50 by Arcane Blasting, reapply your Nether Tempest, dump missiles, evocate, and back into maintenance phase. That's it. The biggest thing with Arcane is making sure that you can get to point A, or from point A to point B, the quickest possible. If you're moving, you're not doing damage as Arcane. So we're going to take a look at this at full speed. I hope it was helpful. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to check out the current Frost guide that's up and the upcoming Fire guide. And remember, if anybody in trade is looking for a portal, I hear Ancient Dalaran is real nice this time of year.